3 days. That's all it took for the world to tilt on its axis, for the vibrant chaos of southern Spain to feel like a cage closing in. I'd come here with Lucy, my best friend since freshman year at UCLA, chasing the sun-soaked freedom we'd romanticized back in our cramped dorm room. We were 25 now, or close enough, me with my wild curls and restless heart, her with that quiet grace that made every room feel safer. Americans abroad, we called ourselves, sipping sangria in hidden tapas bars and laughing until our sides ached about the boys we'd left behind. But boys? That was never the point. Not for me, anyway. Not when it came to her. It started innocently enough, as these things do in stories we tell ourselves to sleep better at night. We'd arrived in Seville 2 weeks ago, jet-lagged and giddy, our backpack stuffed with dreams and too few clean clothes. The city hit us like a fever dream, flamenco guitars wailing from alleyways, the scent of orange blossoms thick enough to taste, horse-drawn carriages clopping past Gothic spires that whispered secrets older than our fragile friendship. Lucy, ever the planner, had mapped out our itinerary, day trips to Cordoba's Mezquita, lazy afternoons in the Alcazar gardens, but I was the spark, dragging her into spontaneous detours like midnight churros runs or dancing with strangers at a feria we'd stumbled upon. That feria was where it cracked. The air hummed with castanet claps and laughter, colorful lights strung like fireflies over the fairgrounds. Lucy looked ethereal in a borrowed flamenco dress, the red fabric hugging her slender frame, her blonde hair loose and catching the breeze. I watched her from the edge of the crowd, nursing a glass of rebujito, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. Then he appeared, a local artist type, all brooding eyes and calloused fingers from strumming guitar strings. Javier, he said his name was, with a smile that made her light up in a way I'd only seen in old photos of her with high school crushes. They danced. God, they danced. His hand on the small of her back, her head thrown back in genuine joy. It was beautiful, objectively. But to me, it was a gut punch. I slipped away before the song ended, weaving through the throng until I found a quiet bench by the river. The Guadalquivir murmured sympathetically, its dark waters reflecting the fireworks bursting overhead. When she found me later, flushed and apologetic, I forced a smile. "He's cute," I said, the words tasting like ash. "You two looked good out there." She sat too close, her knee brushing mine, and for a heartbeat, I hoped, she'd pull away or lean in. Instead, she sighed, that soft, world-weary sound she made when life got too heavy. "Luna, it's nothing. Just fun. You know how it is here. Everything feels bigger, brighter." Her fingers grazed my arm, lingering a second too long, and I swear my skin ignited. But then she mentioned him again, how he'd invited us to his studio tomorrow, and the spark died. I mumbled something about being tired, and we walked back in silence, the night air cooling the sweat on my neck. The next morning, I pretended to have a migraine. Stayed in bed while she went off with Javier, her laughter echoing faintly from the street below as they left. By evening, she returned with sketches he'd given her, abstract swirls of color that she swore reminded her of my wild energy. I nodded, forcing enthusiasm, but inside, a storm brewed. Why him? Why now, when we'd finally escaped the grind of LA, the endless auditions and dead-end jobs that had us both questioning everything? Lucy was an aspiring painter, her canvases back home full of raw emotion she could never voice. I was the writer, scribbling half-formed novels in coffee-stained notebooks, chasing stories that mirrored the ache in my chest. That night, over cheap vino tinto on our tiny balcony, it spilled out. Not the whole truth, never that, but enough to poison the air between us. "You deserve more than flings, Luce," I said, staring at the cathedral silhouette against the starry sky. "Someone who sees you, really sees you." She tilted her head, those blue eyes searching mine in the dim light. "And what if I already have that?" Her voice was soft, tentative, like she was testing fragile ice. My heart slammed against my ribs. Was this it? The moment I'd scripted in my head 100 times, late-night confessions under foreign skies. But then my phone buzzed. A text from an old college hookup, some guy I'd ghosted months ago, popping up like a bad penny. Lucy glanced at the screen, her expression shuddering. See? That's what I mean. You dive in head first, Luna. Me? I play it safe. Javier's easy. No strings, no heartbreak. The words landed like slaps. Easy. Safe. As if what I felt for her was the opposite, a reckless dive into the abyss. I stood abruptly, chair scraping against tile. Maybe I don't want safe, I snapped. Maybe I'm tired of watching you settle for shadows when there's. I stopped. The unsaid hung there, thick as the jasmine vines climbing the walls. Her face crumpled, confusion twisting into something sharper. What are you saying, Luna? That I'm not enough. That you think I'm wasting my life. No, that wasn't it at all. But pride, that vicious American export, clamped my jaw shut. I grabbed my jacket, stormed out into the rain-lashed streets, and didn't look back. Day one of silence. I holed up in a dingy hostel across the river, the kind with peeling wallpaper and a shared bathroom that smelled like regret. My phone stayed dark, no calls, no texts. I wandered Triana's markets by day, fingering ceramic tiles painted with lovers' silhouettes, their eternal embraces mocking my solitude. By night, I nursed café con leches in dimly lit bars, eavesdropping on tourists' tales of romance and ruin. Seville was a city built on passion, they said, Al-Andalus echoes in every archway, Moorish gardens where forbidden loves bloomed. Fitting, then, that mine should wither here. I thought of Lucy in flashes, her laugh like wind chimes in a breeze, the way she'd hum old indie folk tunes while sketching, her hand steady on mine during that brutal breakup with her ex back in LA. We'd been each other's anchor through it all, the cross-country moves, the family dramas, the quiet nights when doubt crept in like fog off the Pacific. Was it always this? Or had I imagined the charged glances, the accidental touches that lingered? In the hostel's thin mattress, I replayed every moment, convincing myself I'd dodged a bullet. Better to ignore than to shatter. Day 2 blurred into a haze of cathedrals and tapas. I climbed the Giralda Tower alone, the wind whipping my curls as I surveyed the labyrinth below, red-tiled roofs sprawling like a lover's rumpled sheets. From up there, the world seemed small, fixable. But my thoughts circled back to her. A street vendor hawked azulejos with quotes from Lorca, to burn with desire and keep quiet about it is the greatest punishment we can bring on ourselves. I bought one on impulse, its blue and white script a talisman against the ache. That evening, in a plaza alive with buskers and children chasing pigeons, I almost broke. Pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over her name. What would I say? I'm sorry, I panicked because I'm in love with you. No. Too raw, too American in its bluntness, spilling guts like it's a therapy session. Instead, I pocketed the phone and ordered another glass of gazpacho, its cold tang a poor substitute for the warmth I craved. Day 3 dawned mercilessly bright, the sun a spotlight on my unraveling. I took a train to nearby Italica, the Roman ruins where gladiators once bled for glory. Amid crumbling amphitheaters and mosaic floors etched with sea creatures, I sat on a weathered stone, notebook open but blank. The betrayal gnawed at me, not hers, but mine. I'd run, as always, leaving her to pick up the pieces. What if Javier was with her now, his easy charm filling the void I'd carved? The thought twisted like a knife, and for the first time, tears came unbidden, hot against the dry Andalusian air. Back in Seville by dusk, I trudged toward the apartment, drawn by some masochistic pull. The streets thrummed with life, flamenco spilling from open windows, the sizzle of paella pans in courtyard doors. Our building loomed, its wrought iron balconies dripping with geraniums. I paused at the entrance, heart pounding. Maybe she'd left. Maybe this was the end of us, two fools who'd chased a dream across an ocean only to drown in unspoken words. The door to our flat was ajar. Music drifted out, not the upbeat pop we usually blasted, but something haunting, a Spanish guitar lament that tugged at my soul. I pushed inside, the scent of jasmine and fresh bread hitting me like a wave. The living room was transformed, candles flickered on every surface, casting golden pools on the tiled floor. Sketches, Lucy's sketches, were pinned to the walls, a mosaic of our trip. There was one of me laughing at the feria, curls wild, eyes alight. Another from the beach in Cadiz, my silhouette against crashing waves. And in the center, propped on the coffee table, a canvas I'd never seen, us, entwined in the Alcazar's gardens, not as friends, but as something more, hands clasped, gazes locked, the colors so vivid they bled into each other. Luna. Her voice, from the balcony. I turned, and there she was, framed in the doorway, her blonde hair catching the candlelight like a halo, blue eyes red-rimmed but fierce. She held a letter in one hand, the paper crumpled as if it had been clutched too tightly. You came back. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. The air thickened, charged with 3 days of silence now demanding reckoning. She stepped closer, the guitar's wail fading into the night. I thought I'd lost you, she whispered, and in that moment, with Seville's heartbeat pulsing around us, I knew whatever came next would change everything. She didn't wait for my apology. Lucy crossed the room in 3 strides, the letter trembling in her grip, and thrust it into my hands. Read it, she said, her voice a raw edge, like she'd been screaming into pillows all weekend. Please. Before you decide to run again. The paper was thick, artisanal stock from some local stationer, inked in her looping script, the kind that turned mundane grocery lists into poetry. I unfolded it with shaking fingers, the words blurring at first through the sting in my eyes. Dearest Luna. If you're reading this, I've finally found the courage you always accused me of lacking. 3 days ago, you walked out, and I let you. Not because I didn't care, but because I was terrified. Terrified of what I've known since that rainy night in our dorm, when you crawled into my bed after your folks cut you off, and we talked until dawn about dreams too big for California. You, with your fire and your stories, me, with my brushes and my silences. I fell then, hard and quiet, like paint pooling on a canvas. But I buried it. Best friends don't ruin things by wanting more. My breath hitched. The room spun, the candle's flames dancing like accusations. I glanced up, but she was staring at the floor, arms wrapped around herself as if holding in a sob. You think Javier was easy? He was a shield. A way to pretend I didn't ache every time you smiled at me like I was your son. I flirted, I danced, because facing you, really facing you, meant admitting I'm not straight, not safe, not the Lucy you think you know. And what if you didn't feel it too? What if 3 days of silence was your way of saying goodbye? Betrayal bloomed in my chest, hot and confusing, not anger at her lies, but at the years we'd wasted dancing around this. I'd ignored her messages, her probable knocks on that hostile door, convincing myself she was better off. But here it was, in black ink, the truth I'd chased in every half-written chapter of my life. I betrayed us both by staying quiet. So tonight, under this ridiculous Spanish sky that's seen more heartbreaks than stars, I'm asking, no, begging, you to stay. Not as friends. As us. Whatever that means. If it's too late, I'll understand. But know this, you're the color in every painting I've ever made. The plot twist in every story I'll never tell. Yours, always, Lucy. The letter slipped from my fingers, fluttering to the floor like a fallen leaf. Why now? I whispered, my voice barely audible over the distant strum of a busker's guitar. After all this time, why pour it out on paper instead of just saying it? She lifted her head, those blue eyes locking onto mine, vulnerable, stripped bare. Up close, I saw the toll of the days, faint shadows under her lashes, a tremble in her lower lip. She was still in the sundress from the feria, faded now, as if she hadn't changed since I'd left. Because words scare me when they're spoken, she admitted, stepping closer until the space between us hummed with possibility. You're the one who spins them into gold. Me, I need the quiet to get it right. And Javier. God, Luna, that was the stupidest thing I've ever done. He saw it, the way I light up around you, and he called me out. Said I was using him to hide from the real fight. Her laugh was bitter, self-deprecating, the kind that echoed our late-night rants about exes who never deserved us. He bowed out gracefully this morning. Told me to go after what matters. The confession hung there, a bridge over the chasm I'd carved with my silence. Seville's night pressed in through the open balcony doors, the murmur of laughter from a nearby taberna, the faint clip-clop of hooves on stone. It was a city of second chances, they said, where Catholics and Moors once clashed and then coexisted, where passions flared and faded like fireworks over the river. Could we do the same? I reached out, tentative, my fingers brushing her arm. She didn't pull away. Instead, she closed the gap, her forehead resting against mine, breath mingling in the candle-warmed air. I ignored you because I was scared too, I murmured, the admission tasting like relief. Scared that if I said it, that I love you, not like a sister, but like the air I breathe, you'd laugh it off. Or worse, pity me. Her hands found my waist, tentative at first, then firm, as if anchoring us both. Pity. Luna, you've been my everything since the day you defended my shitty abstract art in that critique class. I painted you 100 times in secret, wondering if you'd ever see. We stood like that, suspended, the guitar's lament weaving through the room like a thread pulling us tighter. Then, slowly, she tilted her chin, her lips brushing mine, not a kiss, not yet, but a promise. Soft, electric, tasting of salt and unspoken years. When we parted, gasping, the world rushed back in, the tick of the old wall clock, the distant toll of the Giralda bell marking the hour. But drama, as it does in these sun-baked tales, doesn't yield so easily. As we sank onto the worn sofa, her head on my shoulder, the canvas caught my eye again, that intimate portrait of us in the gardens. It was masterful, her best work yet, my curls rendered in fiery ochre, her profile in cool azure, our hands intertwined like vines. When did you do this? I asked, tracing the brushstrokes. Last night, she confessed, voice muffled against my shirt. After you didn't answer my texts. I thought. Maybe if I could show you, instead of tell. Vulnerability cracked her words, and I pulled her closer, marveling at how she fit, slender and strong, like the willows lining the river. We talked then, really talked, unraveling the knots. The jealousy I'd harbored over Javier, her fear of labels in a world that still whispered about girls like us. Turns out, she'd questioned her straight-laced upbringing long before me, stolen glances at the women's soccer team in high school, a college fling she'd buried under frat party facades. By midnight, the candles guttered low, wax pooling like tears on the table. We moved to the balcony, wrapped in a shared blanket against the chill, Seville's lights twinkling below like conspirators. What now? I asked, lacing my fingers through hers. Her thumb traced circles on my skin, a soothing rhythm. We figure it out. Like always. But no more hiding. Dawn crept in slow, painting the sky in pinks and golds, the colors of renewal. We dozed tangled together, waking to the aroma of fresh churros from the bakery downstairs. Over coffee on the balcony, plans bubbled up, extend our stay, rent a studio for her to paint, me to write. It felt dangerously hopeful, the kind of American optimism that conquers continents. But beneath it, the drama simmered. Unbeknownst to us, Javier had left a parting gift, a sketchbook page slipped under the door that morning, depicting Lucy alone in the feria, her face turned toward the shadows where I'd vanished. It was his way of saying you're welcome, but to me, it was a reminder, love's battles leave scars, even the beautiful ones. We spent the day wandering hand in hand, testing the waters. In the Mercado de Triana, we haggled over spices and olives, our laughter drawing smiles from vendors who saw right through us, two wide-eyed Yankees in love with each other and the city. By afternoon, we climbed to the rooftop of the Metropole Parasol, that massive wooden mushroom shading the square below. From up there, the sprawl of Seville unfolded, the cathedral's dome like a crowned queen, the river snaking through like a silver vein. Lucy leaned into me, her breath warm on my neck. "It's ours now," she said. "This place. This life." But as the sun dipped, conflict stirred again, not from us, but from the world beyond our bubble. My phone, silenced for days, lit up with a barrage of missed calls. Mom, back in LA, her voice crackling through voicemail. "Luna, honey, call me. It's about your dad." The words she'd left unsaid hung heavy. Cancer, stage 3, the kind that creeps up quiet and steals everything. I froze, the joy of the day fracturing like cheap tile. Lucy saw it, her hand tightening on mine. "What is it?" I told her, the story tumbling out in halting bursts. Dad's denial, the chemo he'd postponed for one more golf tournament, the family fractures it would widen. She listened without interrupting, her painter's eye seeing the strokes of pain I couldn't voice. When I finished, tears streaming, she pulled me into the rooftop's shade, holding me as sobs racked my frame. "We'll go back," she said simply. "Together. I'll help you navigate the mess, flights, hospitals, all of it." Gratitude swelled, but so did fear. This was the real test, not the flirtations or the silences, but the grit of loving through storms. As we descended into the bustling square, the crowd parting around us, I wondered if we'd survive it. Little did I know, the true shock, the betrayal that would test us to our core, waited just around the bend. We flew out 2 days later, the decision made in the haze of jet lag and grief. Seville receded below the plane's wings like a watercolor bleeding into the Atlantic, vibrant, fleeting, a chapter we'd revisit but never reclaim whole. Lucy held my hand through takeoff, her fingers a lifeline amid the turbulence, whispering stories of Roman ruins to distract from the knot in my gut. "Remember Italica?" she murmured, her voice a balm. "Where emperors fell and empires rose. We're tougher than that." LA hit us like a slap, smog-choked skies, the relentless hum of freeways, the American dream curdled into strip malls and Starbucks queues. My childhood home in the valley hadn't changed, stucco walls baking under the sun, the lemon tree in the yard still dropping fruit nobody picked. Dad looked smaller in his recliner, his once broad shoulders hunched, chemo's toll etching lines around his eyes. He managed a weak grin when he saw us, but it faltered at Lucy's arm around my waist, protective, unapologetic. "Brought reinforcements, huh, kiddo?" he rasped, glancing between us with that sharp gaze that missed nothing. Mom hovered in the kitchen, her perpetual worry lines deepening as she plated overcooked casseroles. She adored Lucy, always had, calling her the daughter I never knew I needed, but this? The subtle shifts, the way our eyes met across the dinner table. It stirred unease. "You two seem close," she ventured one evening, her tone laced with that passive Midwestern politeness masking Southern Baptist roots. I stiffened, fork midway to my mouth. Lucy, bless her, jumped in smooth as silk. "We've always been close, Mrs. Hayes. Closer now, after Spain. It's a good thing. But good things in families like mine come with footnotes." Dad's illness amplified everything, the petty arguments over medical bills, Mom's martyr complex flaring into accusations. "You were always the wild one, Luna," she snapped one night, after I'd suggested hospice over another round of futile treatments. "Running off to Europe while we're drowning here." Lucy, sketching quietly in the corner, set down her pencil. "With respect, ma'am, Luna's been holding this family together longer than you know. She's not running, she's fighting." The words landed like a gauntlet, and for a moment, silence reigned. Mom's eyes welled, Dad coughed into his napkin, and I saw it then, the betrayal not in blood, but in legacy. Our parents' generation, with their picket fence ideals, had built walls around love, straight, safe, sanctioned. We'd inherited the cracks, widened them with every unspoken glance. That night, as Lucy and I slipped into the guest room, the door clicking shut behind us, she traced the tension from my shoulders. "They're scared," she whispered, her lips brushing my temple. "Of losing him. Of change." Our first real kiss came there, in the dim glow of a bedside lamp, tentative and profound. Her mouth soft against mine, tasting of chamomile tea and courage. It deepened slowly, hands exploring with the reverence of artists, me memorizing the curve of her jaw, her the freckles on my collarbone. No rush, no fire, just the quiet unfolding of what we'd denied. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of lavender detergent, we talked futures, her dream gallery show, my novel deadline, a shared apartment somewhere greener than the valley sprawl. But climax builds in whispers, not shouts. 2 weeks in, Dad worsened, a fall in the night, hospital lights blurring into beeps and 4 drips. We took shifts at his bedside, Lucy reading Lorca poems in halting Spanish to make him smile, me holding his hand as morphine dulled the edges. One dawn, as rain pattered against the window, a rare LA storm, he pulled me close. "Luna girl," he murmured, voice a thread, "that one's a keeper. Don't let fear steal her like it stole me from your mom." His eyes, cloudy but clear, flicked to Lucy dozing in the chair. "Love's the only empire worth building." Tears choked me, but I nodded, squeezing his fingers. He passed that afternoon, the room filling with the scent of antiseptic and lilies, Mom's wail echoing down sterile halls. The funeral was a blur, black dresses under gray skies, eulogies that glossed over his flaws, the affairs, the distance, but honored his grit. Lucy stood beside me at the graveside, her hand in mine hidden by the folds of my coat, a silent vow amid the mourner's murmurs. Grief's drama unfolded in the aftermath, Mom's unraveling, packing Dad's things into boxes like exorcising ghosts. She found the azulejo I'd bought in Seville, propped on my dresser, Lorca's quote glinting accusingly. "To burn with desire," she read aloud one evening, her voice sharpening. "What's this about, Luna? Some European nonsense?" I met her gaze, steeling myself. "It's about living truthfully, Mom. About loving who you love, without apology." She recoiled, the pieces clicking. "Her. Lucy. But you're both," words failed her, prejudice's old script stuttering. The betrayal crested then, not in screams, but in her turning away, retreating to the kitchen with a clatter of dishes. Lucy, witnessing from the doorway, paled. "I should go," she said later, packing her bag with mechanical precision. "Give you space. This is too much." "No." I grabbed her wrist, desperation clawing up. "You promised." Through the storms. Outside, thunder rumbled, lightning fracturing the dusk. We argued in the driveway, voices rising over the downpour, her fear of being the villain in my family saga, my terror of losing the one light in this dimming world. "You're not the problem," I pleaded. "Their narrowness is. And I choose you. Every time." She searched my face, rain streaking her cheeks like tears. Then, in a move that stunned me silent, she dropped her bag, pulled a small velvet box from her pocket, a simple silver band, etched with intertwined vines, bought in a Seville jeweler's on impulse during my silence. "I was going to wait," she said, voice breaking. "For the perfect moment. But here, now, this is us. Raw, real. Marry me, Luna. Not tomorrow, not in some chapel. But in the mess of it all. Say yes, and we'll build from the ruins." The world narrowed to her eyes, blue as the Guadalquivir at dawn, fierce with the love I'd almost lost. Betrayal's sting, from family, from fears, faded against this, her on one knee in the mud, box extended like a heart laid bare. Laughter bubbled through my sobs, American resilience kicking in. "Yes," I choked out, pulling her up into the rain. "God, yes." We kissed there, soaked and shivering, the storm our witness. Mom watched from the porch, her silhouette softening as understanding dawned, slow, painful, but inevitable. Humanistic, they call it, the grace in letting go, in loving wide enough to encompass flaws. Months later, back in a sunlit LA loft, Lucy's canvases on the walls, my manuscript nearing its end, we'd host a quiet ceremony. Friends from college, a few forgiving relatives, sangria to toast Seville's ghosts. No empires, just us, two women who'd ignored the easy paths, chosen the dramatic ones, and found home in each other's arms. In the end, the stunning thing wasn't the proposal or the pain, it was the revelation that love isn't a plot twist, but the steady hand turning the page. And in that, we were free.